If you speak your truth and stick with it, amazing things happen, and your life can be transformed by that. One thing's for sure, if you don't speak your truth, nothing's going to change. What we've seen in this whole COVID-19 pandemic hoax of extraordinary proportions, talk about the bigger the lie, the more we'll believe it, is a tidal wave of contradictions. We have gone through these weeks and we're being told that if you go out from your house arrest in ways that the government doesn't agree with, you are killing people. Social distancing, masks, house arrest is followed by no social distancing in the riots and the protests. But because both serve the agenda of divide, you have this apparent contradiction of social distancing imposed and then social distancing completely ignored. It's not a problem. If you acquiesce to what authority tells you without question or challenge, you'll just be a slave of the system. Look at the economic devastation of these lockdowns on every community, black, white, any. That should be the focus. That should be the focus of fury, it should be the focus of outrage, and it should be the focus of we're not having this. Is a black life important? Yeah, of course. Just as important as anybody else's life. So why is it more important when a black life is snuffed out by a white person than it's snuffed out by a black person? I'm sure there are black racist policemen as well, because racism is not a race, it's a state of mind. Again, if we go on perceiving everything down the fault lines of race, then all we're going to do is be in conflict with each other ongoing. Where's that going to take us? Speak your truth, express your uniqueness, and let the world come to you instead of you going to the world.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is... This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is David Icke, the English writer, broadcaster, and public speaker known since the 1990s as a professional conspiracy researcher, calling yourself a full-time investigator into who and what is really controlling the world. You are the author of 21 books and have lectured in over 25 countries, speaking live for up to 10 hours to huge audiences, filling stadiums like Wembley Arena. You are here for the fourth time this year to talk about the implications of the COVID-19 pandemic and global lockdown, the looming economic recession, dangerous technology rollouts, including 5G, mandatory vaccinations, the protests, riots, and destruction of property, Black Lives Matter and their unidentified fundraisers and ulterior motives, the concept of defunding the police, and the continuous censorship and violation of our basic human right to freedom of speech. David, welcome back to London Real.
Thank you, Brian.
It's great to have you here. First, I just want to announce that we are live streaming now on our new digital freedom platform, which is a censorship-free, independent broadcasting system that is of the people, by the people, for the people, and available exclusively at our website at freedomplatform.tv. Can everyone watching us now please Share this link via the sidebar to any and all of your social media channels. Let me repeat that. Can everyone watching now please share this link via the sidebar to any and all of your social media channels? This is important. Simply ask your friends and family to give us 15 minutes. That's all we ask. And then they can decide. For our last conversation, Rose ICKE III, nearly 70% of our viewers came from people sharing this episode link. So if everybody could share this now to all of our platforms and contacts, I would appreciate it. David, I pledge to you and everyone watching us that none of this conversation will be edited, censored, removed, or banned, and that anyone in the world can watch the full version of this episode free at freedomplatform.tv/ICKE. Thanks to the generous donations of over 32,000 people around the world that we affectionately call the London Real Army. For anybody wanting to become a founding member of the Digital Freedom Platform, they can visit freedomplatform.tv/give to donate and fight with us on the front lines to protect our human rights. Here at London Real, we've been a platform for free speech since 2011. And David, I'm excited to have you here today. I wanted to begin by bringing up everyone to speed on the recent events in our 3 previous conversations in 2020. So let's go there. On March 18th, you and I broadcast Rose ICKE I. Seems like ages ago, but it wasn't. Our first conversation of this year when I asked you to make sense of the early days of the coronavirus pandemic and global market crash. The UK was not yet on lockdown. In this conversation, you spoke about COVID-19 and your concept of problem, reaction, solution. You questioned the motives of the World Health Organization, and you warned of a looming Hunger Games society. This episode immediately went viral, was watched over 10 million times by people around the world that were keen to listen to a different narrative than that of the mainstream media and governments. Then, on April 6th, we broadcast our second conversation of 2020, Rose ICKE II, that became the second largest YouTube live stream in the world that day, only behind that of President of the United States, Donald Trump. With 65,000 concurrent viewers, nearly 4 times the previous episode live stream, we expected this to reach 40 million views, making it the largest video podcast in human history. In that conversation, you described the COVID-19 misdiagnosis and the misclassifications of deaths, dangerous 5G technology rollouts, the upcoming vaccine agenda, economic totalitarianism, and the weaponization of fear. Unfortunately, just 30 minutes later, the entire live stream episode was deleted and banned on YouTube with no explanation and no communication with us. 24 hours later, after the BBC broke the news, our representatives at YouTube accused you of being a COVID-19 denier and subsequently deleted and banned an additional 50 of your videos and my personal vlogs from YouTube. Next, Instagram, Facebook, and Dropbox all followed suit by deleting and banning our videos, and then London Real was completely deplatformed from LinkedIn and Vimeo without explanation. But we fought back and continued to host both episodes, Rose ICKE I and Rose ICKE II, on our website to tens of millions of viewers, and still do to this day, despite sustaining multiple highly sophisticated malicious attacks to our technology platforms. Around the same time, David, you were completely deplatformed from both Facebook and YouTube for producing, quote, health misinformation that could cause physical harm. Of course, we all know that if this policy was universally applied, all mainstream media and most governments would have been deplatformed long ago. Next, the UK regulator Ofcom, who is controversially also in charge of issuing 5G licenses in this country, censored the broadcast of Rose ICKE I on the television channel London Live. Ofcom said, quote, it risked causing significant harm to viewers. Harm to viewers. Yeah, as if they should be coddled. At this point, we had had enough and decided that we could no longer rely on any third-party live stream for broadcasting, nor accept the imposition of their agendas on our editorial policy. I've said it before, David, we are here not to take part, we are here to take over. So we began crowdfunding our Digital Freedom Platform, which raised over $1.25 million from over 32,000 members of the London Real Army, fighting for our most basic human right, freedom of speech. This has been an unbelievable vote of confidence in our fight against the tyranny of censorship. On May 3rd, we successfully live broadcast Rose ICKE III on our brand new Digital Freedom Platform to over 1.366 million unique viewers, making it the biggest live stream of a conversation in human history, a tremendous victory over the dark forces of censorship and oppression. Which brings us to today, 6 weeks later, where we find ourselves in a brand new world order. The media and government agenda has changed 180 degrees from the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown to riots and protests surrounding the Black Lives Matter movement, their unidentified fundraisers, and their ulterior motives. We've witnessed anger, violence, the tearing down of monuments, and calls to defund the police across the USA and throughout the world. Before we start, I want to again ask everyone watching us to please share this, take a few seconds, go to the sidebar and post it to all your social media platforms. Simply ask your friends and family to give us 15 minutes and then they can decide. David, I'll be honest, the past 3 months of my life has been some of the most challenging times ever. My reputation has been questioned in the press. My business is under threat, and my basic human right to express myself is being denied every single day. But this has also been the most empowering time of my life, with millions of people from around the world rising up and voicing their support for what we are doing. As a result, I've never been so steadfast in my convictions to fight for the basic fundamental right of freedom of speech and freedom of press. And that is why we are here broadcasting today. David, I just want to thank you for 30 years of tireless work and for your own conviction to fight on. As I've said before, I might not agree with everything you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. So David, where do we begin?
Well, I've been trashed and ridiculed and abused for 30 years. And I'm sitting here now, stronger than ever, talking to more people than ever. And I hope I've shown that you don't have to run away and hide. You can speak your truth and people will react to it as they will. But if you keep speaking your truth and keep speaking your truth, if what you say has validity, it will eventually be shown to be so. And at that point, people who ridiculed you and dismissed you suddenly start to make the connection between what you've been saying for 30 years and events in the world. And suddenly, instead of people laughing at you in the street and pointing at you and giggling, which I had years and years and years of, suddenly they want to stop you to talk about the information. And it's so important, and we can go into this too later when we get into this whole riots and Black Lives Matter situation, that we do not give our power away by perceiving ourselves as victims. Once you consider yourself a victim, what you're saying is, I don't have power over my life anymore. Something or someone else does. And so you are accepting that you are powerless and they are powerful in relation to you. So when Facebook banned me and YouTube banned me, these facilitators of fascism, these digital book burners, you can consider yourself a victim and you can say, poor me. You can be a martyr. Oh, look, I did my best and oh, look what's happened to me. I'm a martyr. I have no intention of being a martyr, thank you very much. I have the intention of bringing this nonsense down. And so I just want to make clear that just because these Silicon Valley giants like Facebook and YouTube delete you, doesn't mean you disappear. And what is happening now is people are starting to build an alternative communication network that operates outside of this Silicon Valley fascistic mafia. So if you look at my situation, I have davidicke.com, where people can get all my videos and news stories every day in context with what they really mean as opposed to what the mainstream mean. We've got ICKE, which has over 700 videos, series, documentaries, podcasts, etc. And we are just about to launch a feature-length documentary called Unnatural, which exposes, and most of the people taking part are mainstream people who would never get on the mainstream media, exposing the effect on health and psychology of this electromagnetic technology and 5G. We're just about to start filming another feature-length documentary called Lethal Injection, exposing the dangers of vaccination. all my videos that were on YouTube are now on BitChute, which is the YouTube with no censorship. And as I speak, at the printers is a new book called The Answer, which I finished 2 weeks ago. So all of that is happening despite the cult censors in Silicon Valley trying to silence me. And this is what happens when you do not accept being a victim. Okay, challenge here, what we going to do about it? Not I'm a victim of it, what we going to do about it? And this great line, necessity is the mother of invention, is absolutely spot on. When you get challenges, if you are determined to overcome them, it oils the wheels of creativity. And so these challenges are wonderful opportunities. And it was essential. This is why we started ICKE in the late 2019, because we knew this censorship was coming. And we have to not be overwhelmed by it, but use it as a stimulus to build our own platforms, which will not censor. And that's the way it's going. And there's a lot of great things happening.
Yeah, and there's clearly an interest, because our last conversation was the biggest in human history. And that didn't happen on a technology platform. So people want alternatives, and they'll search for them as well.
Yeah, and what's vital about what we call alternative is that they perceive pictures, they see connections. They don't just see random events. And one of the great problems, and the way that the human psyche has been manipulated systematically on purpose, is to symbolically and literally stop different parts of the brain talking to each other. Because if they don't, you see random everywhere. Oh, this is happening now, that's happening, oh, that's happening, that's happening. But when there is communication, you see two things. First of all, you see how things connect. You see how the dots become patterns. You see how the pixels become pictures. And it's in the pictures and the patterns that the truth lies and the revelations lie. But you also see the contradictions. See, if you're seeing a random event and you're basically seeing them in and of themselves, then you don't see the contradictions. But when you are communicating, you see what the government says here, and you see what the government says there, or some other authority or other, and you go, hold on, if that's true, right? Yeah. Well, that can't be true then, can it? And what we've seen in this whole COVID-19 pandemic hoax of extraordinary proportions, talk about the bigger the lie, the more we'll believe it, is a tidal wave of contradictions and ridiculous demands, which when you are comparing them and seeing that contradiction, you see crystal clearly that it's a scam. And I'll give you just one example. I could give you legion. We have gone through these weeks, and we've been told that if you go out from your house arrest in ways that the government doesn't agree with, you are killing people. You're horrible. And all kind of crime of crimes. You go and protest about house arrest. You're killing people. Have a look, killing people. Media, government. And then overnight, thousands of people are shoulder to shoulder in protests, And suddenly it's not such a big deal anymore. And when you see the connections and what the common denominators of all this are, you see why this, on the face of it, ridiculous contradiction actually makes sense. The common denominator of everything that happens in the world is, does it serve the agenda of this global cult that I've been exposing for 30 years? Or does it not serve the agenda? If it serves the agenda, it is supported, it is not banned, it is not suppressed, it is promoted in the media, and it is allowed to happen, indeed encouraged to happen. If it does not promote or support the agenda, indeed challenges it, then it's not supported, it's suppressed, it's silenced, it's demonized. So, the agenda is served by people acquiescing to house arrest and to doing what the government tells them to do in fine detail with regard to this pandemic. It is not served by people protesting against that. And so that is demonized, suppressed, etc. But the foundation of the few controlling the many, at any time in human history, it's a fundamental foundation of everything. You must divide and rule the many. So it serves the agenda of divide and rule to have people under house arrest and everyone kept apart. It serves them with social distancing where everyone is kept apart, divide. It serves them to have people wearing masks, which means that human discourse and interaction is destroyed. So social distancing, masks, house arrest must happen. But hold on a second. It also serves the agenda of divide and rule to have massive racial division. What has happened, well, almost out of nowhere, since these protests and riots began in the wake of the George Floyd situation? It has driven people apart. It is dividing society. Now that serves the agenda. And so social distancing, masks, house arrest is followed by no social distancing in the riots and the protests, but because both serve the agenda of divide, you have this apparent contradiction of social distancing imposed and then social distancing completely ignored. It's not a problem. But there's a common denominator between the two. They both serve the agenda of dividing and ruling the population. And this was captured, Brian, so perfectly in one of the most ludicrous documents I've ever seen. And it was in the last week when about 1,000 doctors and medical people and others signed a letter when the protests and the riots began. And they said, these protests, brackets, including riots, should not be stopped because of the danger of the infectious nature of COVID-19. Because it's more important that these protests take place and be allowed to take place than what they claim is an infectious disease. I don't accept that, but they do. And in this same letter, they said, but this does not mean there should be a permissive attitude and acceptance of other protests, particularly, it said, protests against stay-at-home orders. So in that one letter, you had this ridiculous contradiction that it's okay to protest without social distancing, but only if you protest here against this. But other protests, it's not. It's still dangerous. And you think that is crazy. That crazy. How can they justify that? Serves the agenda. Serves the agenda. That's what's going on. And so, in this year of extraordinary happenings, we now have the first woke virus. The first one in human history. A woke virus that says, if you protest against this, I'll leave you alone. But if you protest against that, I'm coming for you. And of course, that's ludicrous, but you've got to see this common denominator. And if people take this and look at the world from this perspective, the common theme is, does it serve the agenda or does it not? They will see across the great spectrum of human society how what is allowed and encouraged and promoted serves the agenda, and what is suppressed, demonized, and prevented challenges the agenda. It's so simple, and that's why on the face of it, we're seeing madness. But if you come here, there's method in the madness.
How do you get people to see that? Because, I've had a lot of conversations offline with friends of mine, and, Black people in America see this happen, another act of police violence, another scenario of rioting like we saw in Watts in 65, Rodney King in 92, and again, and they're like, I'm angry. And it seems like a systemic issue of, police racism. How do you get someone like that to step out of the anger and emotion and try to look at it from this perspective that you're bringing? Because they have a right to be angry, and that, like you said, they're actually potentially playing into someone else's agenda.
Well, if people don't want to be scammed? First of all, they have to get informed, and they have to stop getting all their perceptions from the mainstream media. Because you look at the what we might call the conservative or political right, what you might call the moderate political right, and you look at the woke mentality, and they may be at odds with each other, but overwhelmingly they're getting their information from the same mainstream sources. They're just seeing that information in a different way. When you step back from mainstream sources and you look at alternative sources where narratives are being questioned instead of parroted and repeated, then you can start to see how the dots connect. You see, it's not what is happening that is the point of revelatory understanding. It's why it's happening. It's context. Yes, this is happening, okay, and if you react only on the basis of this is happening, then you can get sucked in and start behaving in ways that the authorities and the cult behind the authorities want you to act. But if you stop and you ask, why is this happening? Then you can start to get context. See, what's missing is context. The mainstream media will tell you that something's happening. They'll put their own spin on it, of course, but they'll tell you that something's happening. But they won't tell you accurately, unbiasedly, why it's happening. So when I have this phrase, know the outcome and you'll see the journey. If you don't know where the world's being taken and who by, and the techniques of manipulation that take us there, then the world is a random place. you look at a newspaper and you look at the news or whatever, and lots of random things are happening. And it's very difficult, almost impossible, it is impossible, from that perspective of perceptual randomness to make sense of the world. Not going to do it. But when you know where the world's being taken, you know basically who's taking us there, why, and the techniques of manipulation to take us there, suddenly randomness disappears. Because what is random to most people becomes a very clear sequence of events that is taking us in a very obvious direction towards the outcome. And so, like I say, fundamental to manipulating humanity to take this journey towards the global Orwellian state is to set the target population at war with itself. You know, during the lockdowns, you've had this big conflict going on between people who say, you know, we should be allowed to go out, and other people say, oh, you can't go out, you're killing people. And then right on the back of that, we have this division on the grounds of race. And, you know, I keep coming back to this, but it's absolutely vital in my view. We are different points of attention within a infinite stream of consciousness. That's who we are. You are an expression of the same stream of consciousness that I'm an expression of. You are looking at life and reality from a slightly different angle, and others will be looking at life from a very different angle, but they are the same consciousness. And we are experiencing a almost infinitesimally small, short experience in what is called a human. So what is a human? A human is a way of processing information. So the human body, the human brain, the human genetic system processes information in a certain way, and we call that human. And when we reach that point that we call death, the consciousness that's experiencing that and having these series of experiences we call human, then withdraws from the body, I call it biological computer, which processes information in a certain way. And that's why near-death experiences, in there now millions, describe that when they leave the body, when the body dies, reality is completely different to what it is as a human. Because what the body does is it focuses, and this is vital, I'm coming around to these riots and this racial division in a second. What the body does is focus our attention in a band of frequency, and that band of frequency is absolutely tiny. According to mainstream science, the electromagnetic spectrum is 0.005% of what exists in the universe. Some say it's a bit more, but not much. And visible light, which is the only band of frequency that we can perceive as a reality, is a smear of the 0.005%. And this is the body and the brain focusing our attention on this particular band of frequency. And in that period, which is ridiculously short, we have an experience by that information processing called being human. Now, imagine this, people realized that they are infinite, eternal expressions of consciousness, having a brief experience called human, with a series of labels given to different humans like white and black and Asian and transgender and gay and straight and all these labels. What are those labels? They are experiences. That's all they are. Brief experiences. When we leave the body, these massive number of people now have reported these near-death experiences. When they leave the body, they're not still Bill driving a bus. They're not Ethel on the checkout. Their expansive consciousness, which as they describe, they can experience past, present, future, all in the same moment, and they undergo this massive expansion of consciousness. Why? Because they've left the body, which is focusing the attention of that consciousness within this narrow band of frequency. Now, if you knew that's what we were, that we're all one, that we're all expressions of each other, we're just different perceptual states of the same consciousness, having brief experiences with these labels. Try dividing and ruling that. Very, very difficult. And if there's a few of you and you want to control the many, you have to divide and rule the many and set them at war with each other. Otherwise, the few can't control the many. You have to get the many to acquiesce to you. Otherwise, the few can't control the many. And so what they've had to do is get humanity to self-identify the I with the labels. So you say to someone, who are you? They might say, I'm a white man from Barnsley who used to work in the mines. No, that's what you have experienced. That's not you. You are the consciousness that had the experience. Someone might say, I'm a black guy from the southern states of America, and I do this, I do that, and this is my background, this is my life story, this is what I do, this is my job. No. That's what you're experiencing. You, the I, the eternal I, the true I, are the consciousness having that experience, which will move on when that experience is over. Nightmare for divide and rulers. So what you have to do, you have to get them to self-identify with the label. And once you've got someone saying, I am black, I am white, I am transgender, I am gay, there's nothing wrong with saying those things, as long as we understand that they are not the I, they are the experience. But if you take those labels to be the I, what you are, now you have infinite potential for playing the labels off against each other. And what they've been doing systematically is manipulating people into smaller and smaller minutiae of self-identity. So now we have this long list of letters, LGBT, blah, 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 to describe the fine detail of a minutiae of self-identity. And this has created more and more potential for divide and rule. So now we have feminist activists at war with transgender activists. Yeah. And so as the sense of the I becomes more and more subdivided and subdivided and subdivided, the potential for divide and rule and setting the target population at war with itself becomes infinite. I mean, it's only limited by the number of labels you can come up with. And my goodness me, that list of letters seems to get longer all the time. So when we reach the point where saying all lives matter is considered racist, you know you're in a crazy place. But again, let's come back to the cult, its agenda, its methods of operation. What does all lives matter say? It says we are one. Everyone is equally valid, no matter what the color of your skin, no matter what the nature of your religion, no matter what the nature of your sexuality, we are all different expressions of the same whole. What is that doing? It's bringing people together. Unity. What is the worst nightmare of a global cult seeking to impose its will on humanity? Unity, harmony, coming together. So Black Lives Matter is a division. It says not all lives matter and everyone should be seen as equally valid. It says we are going to focus on one part of that whole. And when you focus on one part of the whole, you start dividing it from another part of the whole. And so we're having this division between a black society and so-called white privilege. And it's fundamentally dividing people. And not only that, you have a situation where this part of the division, lots of people in the black community, the great majority of people in the black community can see it, but they don't get to the microphones. I'm talking about those that get to the microphones, that kind of lead these riots and stuff. What are they saying to white people? That we don't just want you to accept that we are equal to you. We want you to get on your knees. We want you to get on your knees and admit your white privilege. Now, what level of division does that create? And what does it say when people are being demanded to get on their knees? Where does the cult want humanity as a whole? It wants us on our knees. I've got a book I wrote a few years ago called Human Race, Get Off Your Knees, ironically, rather appropriate today. What's all this about? And when we come to this whole, the great illusion and the one that we are being pressured to accept is that different groups, whether they're black, white, or whatever, can be judged as one whole, as if they're all the same. So you have this group good, can't be criticized. This group bad, say what you bloody like. And what that does, again, coming back to the same theme, is it creates group situations which you can divide and rule. Now, when you come back to what I was saying a few minutes ago, we are all points of attention within the same infinite whole. Well, those different points of attention, different perspectives, different states of being, mind, attitudes, they manifest through every single group. They manifest through white people, through black people, through Asian people, through transgender people, through gay people, through straight people, whatever. And if you look at people's individual behavior, irrespective of their color, creed, religion, or background, their individual behavior, what you're then doing is you are looking at people devoid of any input of what color they are, or background they are, or sexuality they are. You're looking at an individual. And when you judge individual behavior rather than group behavior, now the ability to divide and rule is basically finished. Because what you're saying is, and I'll say it as many times as I need to, white people have so many great people
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.